When I was in college, I rented a small apartment near campus. It was cozy and affordable, perfect for a student on a budget. I loved the sense of independence it gave me, but that changed when I noticed something strange. It started with small things. I would come home to find my belongings slightly out of place. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful, but then I started receiving strange notes. They were left on my kitchen table, written in a neat, unfamiliar handwriting. The notes were always friendly, but they made my skin crawl. One night, I woke up to the feeling of being watched. I glanced at my window and saw a shadowy figure standing outside, staring in. I screamed, and the figure disappeared into the night. I called the police, but they found no evidence of anyone being there. I started to feel paranoid. Every creak, every rustle sent my heart racing. I bought new locks and even installed a security system, but the feeling of being watched never went away. One night, I heard a noise coming from my living room. I grabbed a baseball bat and crept out of my bedroom. In the living room, I found a man standing by the window. He turned and smiled at me, a chilling, knowing smile. He said he had been watching me for months, fascinated by my daily routines. He claimed he loved me and wanted to be close to me. I swung the bat, and he fled. The police arrived soon after, and this time, they found evidence: fingerprints, shoe prints, and the man's jacket. He was eventually caught and arrested. It turned out he had been stalking me since I moved in, breaking into my apartment whenever I was out. Even though he was behind bars, the experience left me traumatized. I moved to a new apartment and became hypervigilant about my safety. The sense of independence I once cherished was replaced with constant fear. The stranger in the window had turned my sanctuary into a prison. After my breakup with Jake, I thought I could move on with my life. We had been together for 2 years, but things had turned toxic. I ended the relationship and hoped to put it behind me, but Jake had other plans. At first, it was just phone calls and messages. He would call me at all hours, leaving voicemails begging for another chance. When I blocked his number, he started showing up at my workplace, causing scenes. My coworkers were concerned, but I assured them I could handle it. One night, I came home to find a bouquet of flowers on my doorstep. There was no note, but I knew they were from Jake. This continued for weeks: flowers, gifts, and love letters left at my door. I was becoming increasingly frightened. Then, things escalated. I started receiving threatening messages from unknown numbers. They were explicit and terrifying, describing what he would do to me if I didn't take him back. I reported the harassment to the police, but without concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. One evening, I was walking home from work when I felt someone following me. I quickened my pace, but the footsteps behind me did the same. I turned around and saw Jake, his face twisted with anger. He grabbed my arm and started yelling, demanding that I listen to him. I managed to break free and ran to the nearest store, where the employees called the police. Jake was arrested for harassment and stalking. He was given a restraining order, but the damage was done. I lived in constant fear, always looking over my shoulder. Even after Jake was out of my life, the fear remained. I changed my phone number, moved to a new apartment, and became hyper-aware of my surroundings. The experience left me scarred, a constant reminder of how easily a person can become a prisoner of someone else's obsession. When I moved into my new apartment, I was excited to start fresh. The building was quiet, and the neighbors seemed friendly. One of them, Mr. Thompson, was an elderly man who lived next door. He seemed harmless, always polite and kind. But soon, I started noticing strange things. I would catch Mr. Thompson staring at me from his window or lurking in the hallway. He would always have a reason to knock on my door, borrowing sugar, asking about the weather, offering to help with groceries. His attention made me uncomfortable. One night, I woke up to a noise coming from the living room. I crept out of bed and found Mr. Thompson standing in my apartment, holding one of my photo albums. I screamed, and he dropped the album, muttering apologies before rushing out. I called the police, but they couldn't do much since he technically hadn't done anything illegal. I changed the locks and installed extra security measures, but it didn't stop him. He would leave notes under my door, telling me how beautiful I was and how much he cared for me. I felt trapped, unable to escape his obsessive attention. One evening, I came home to find my apartment ransacked. Photos of me were scattered everywhere, some of them defaced. I knew it was Mr. Thompson. I called the police again, and this time, they took action. They searched his apartment and found more photos of me, along with other disturbing items. Mr. Thompson was arrested and charged with stalking and breaking and entering. He was sent to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. I moved out immediately, unable to stay in the place that had become a nightmare. The experience left me paranoid and anxious. I struggled to trust anyone and became hypervigilant about my surroundings. The tenant next door had turned my life into a living nightmare, and the scars he left would stay with me forever. After graduating college, I landed my dream job and moved to a new city. Life was going great until I started receiving phone calls from an unknown number. At first, it was just heavy breathing on the other end. I dismissed it as a prank, but the calls continued, becoming more frequent and unsettling. The caller never spoke, just breathed heavily or played disturbing sounds. I changed my number, but the calls started coming to my new phone as well. I reported it to the police, but without a voice or evidence. There was little they could do. One night, I received a call that made my blood run cold. The caller described what I was wearing and the layout of my apartment. They knew intimate details about my life, things I had never shared with anyone. I realized I was being watched. I installed security cameras and changed all my locks, but the calls kept coming. One evening, I came home to find a note taped to my door. It was a picture of me taken through my apartment window, with the words "I'm watching you" scrawled across it. I contacted the police again, and they set up surveillance. After days of tension and fear, they finally caught the stalker, a delivery man who had become obsessed with me. He had been watching me for months, learning my routines and invading my privacy. The man was charged with stalking and harassment. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, but the fear stayed with me. The experience left me constantly on edge, wary of every phone call and every shadow outside my window. The silent caller had stolen my peace of mind. I had just moved into a charming townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. My neighbor, Mr. Reed, was a middle-aged man who seemed friendly and welcoming. He helped me move in and offered to assist with any repairs. I was grateful for his kindness, but soon, his attention became overwhelming. Mr. Reed would knock on my door multiple times a day, bringing gifts and asking if I needed help with anything. He would often stand outside my window, just watching me. It made me uncomfortable, but I didn't want to be rude. One night, I woke up to the sound of my front door opening. I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, finding Mr. Reed standing in my living room. He claimed he heard a noise and wanted to check on me. I was shaken but thanked him and asked him to leave. After that incident, I installed new locks and a security system, but Mr. Reed's behavior escalated. He started leaving notes and small gifts on my doorstep, expressing his feelings for me. I politely but firmly told him I wasn't interested, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. One evening, I came home to find my cat missing. I searched everywhere but couldn't find her. The next day, Mr. Reed knocked on my door, holding my cat. He claimed she had wandered into his house. I thanked him, but the incident left me unnerved. The final straw came when I found a hidden camera in my bedroom. I called the police, and they discovered that Mr. Reed had been spying on me for months. He had installed cameras in various parts of my house and had been watching my every move. Mr. Reed was arrested and charged with stalking and invasion of privacy. I moved out immediately, unable to stay in a place that had been so violated. The experience left me feeling paranoid and vulnerable, a constant reminder of how easily one's sense of security can be shattered.